Hey there, Griff Hamlin here. Welcome to my little home office, my little studio here. Today's blog is a video blog because this was kind of hard to explain in an email. So I thought, well, I'll just do a little video of it and I'll just show you what I'm talking about. So the question that I had was from a beginning student who was working on strumming and rhythm mastery, which I have here. So she was, struggling because obviously it's a challenge when you're working still on learning to change chords. And so the struggle was, how do I look, should I look at my hand when I change chords? Because if I don't look at my hand, I get the wrong sound, right? And if I do look at my hand, I don't know what I'm supposed to do because it's in the page. And it's this standard, constant back and forth. And so as I was explaining via an email, I thought, man, this is really tedious and hard to describe via email, but I think it'll make perfect sense if I show you directly in the book. All right, so I'm going to hold this up because I don't know any other way to do it. This is example 1-11, okay? And so you can see that it starts off with a G chord, and there's 4 beats worth of stuff to do, right? 3/4 and then 2/8 notes. And I know that's not complicated for most people, but what's important here is the method to the madness. And the very next down strum, the +1 beat, as I like to call it, is the D chord. Okay, so it's fairly easy to memorize what is supposed to happen in those first 5 beats. The first measure plus 1 beat. Okay, so what I'd suggest is put your hand on the G, right? And then you're there because that's the first chord. Okay, so because you got to be able to look at your hands, but you can't look at your hands unless you've memorized what's here. Now, later on, for sure, as you get better and you don't need to look at your hands so much, you will find that you can do a lot more sight reading where you just look at the page and play what's on it. But until you can make those moves, and that might take a year, who knows? I mean, I'm pretty good at this. I've been doing it a long time. And on things that are challenging, I got to look at my hands. Okay, so it's just one of those things. You got to slow down, or you got to make some concession. If you're trying to read and play simultaneously, something is going to give. And when you're first starting, everything gives when you're in that position. Okay, so what to do is, okay, put your hand in the position for the G. Okay, and now read through, and then it's quarter, 2/8, down, up, right? Count it out, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and get to where you can do that. Get to where you can do it without looking at this page. That's what's important. Get rid of that. Grab your guitar, of which I have none here. All right. Grab your guitar. I know, well, it's an Ibanez. Okay. Grab your guitar and then practice that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then going to the D. Just the one strum. Just that one strum, okay? It's just that +1 beat. What that does is extremely important. Obviously, you get the first measure memorized. My guitar's falling over. You get the first measure memorized, okay? That's huge. That's a big deal. But you also are practicing the change. You're practicing going across the bar line. You're practicing going from the G to the D. When you can play that measure +1 beat comfortably, okay, now you're going to move on to the second measure. And what you're going to do on the second measure is you're going to go back. You're going to start at the beginning of the D and play the D +1 bar. Okay? So again, you'll play D, 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 C, and you'll practice that, okay? So it kind of makes these arcs. When I used to draw this out for students, it would look like this. Okay, so you can see you're overlapping, right? That one beat, you're overlapping. So you're working on this up to there, but then you're going back a little bit and you're working on this chunk. and then you go back and you start on this chunk, but you add the 1 beat down here, right? So you're always doing these chunks. You're doing a measure plus 1 beat. Get yourself across that bar line, make that chord change, do that one thing, just that one thing. If you get in the habit of doing just that one thing, it's much easier to memorize. You don't really have to, think past that. Once you've made the change, you've probably done the difficult part. When you get to soloing and that sort of stuff, it's a different ball of wax because you're dealing with phrases and longer phrases that are going to cross bar lines. And I get it, that's going to be more challenging. But when you're first starting out, or even an intermediate player, and you're working on strumming and learning a song, you have to memorize this stuff or you're going to have a hard time making the chord changes. So if you can't make the chord changes while you read the music, this is what you need to do. It's good also to do this because when you've got something memorized and you're not reading it, you'll play it better. And of course, when you're a beginner, we'll take all the help we can get, right, to play it better. So keep that in mind. When you're reading and you're playing simultaneously, something's got to give. So I encourage you to start the memorization process. It's not, most of this stuff is not challenging to memorize once you've played it a few times, and that'll also help you see the repeating patterns, because you'll see, for example, that same rhythm repeats in a whole bunch of different measures. So you'll start to get comfortable with that as well. There's a whole lot of benefits to it. So remember to do 1 measure plus 1 beat, get that down, then do the next measure plus 1 beat, and that'll help out a lot for stuff like this. Okay? Thanks for joining me today. Talk to you soon.